Now, in two pieces, I haven't brought them, but because they're quite large, there are glistening crystals actually incorporated in the glass. And this is one of them. This is a very fine mask. It's one of a pair. I've got the sister piece. The sister piece doesn't have anything. But if you look here at that score, sideways on, there's black material, and in amongst it are glistening microspheres. And the biggest of those is about 500 microns across, so half a millimetre. We haven't been able to prove that these are diamond incorporated in the glass, but they're certainly extraneous crystals. This is my friend Professor Alan Boyd, who helped me in doing some experiments on this. I'm quite good at hijacking good scientists, and Alan's photographing this, and that's one of his surface EMs of one of these surface crystals, which we haven't, we thought we might be able to do Raman spectroscopy in situ. This is a fish, obviously, and in this line here is a crystal that's 3 millimeters in diameter. Now, I'm not going to break the fish open to find out what it is, but it's suggestive that these are incorporated diamonds encased in the glass at the time of formation. Now, what is this glass and what causes the red streaks? Well, we turn to studies on a sad story of my broken red dick, which I brought this home and I said to my wife, I want you to have a look at this. I brought a few of these. And she said, well, we better put it away. Elena's coming to clean. So I left it on my wife's desk. And Elena didn't notice it. She wasn't expecting to find a dick on the desk. She knocked it off and broke it. Okay. So this dick has been extremely highly studied. I mean, it's been studied in at least 3 laboratories. A very sophisticated laboratory in Pisa, another in Johnson Matthey, and another in Queen Mary College. Unfortunately, the nice story is that it's not the only dick I've got. But they're actually quite common. Anyway, so this is from Johnson Matthey, backscatter image of a slice from this piece, which has been polished heavily, and you can see where the red streaks were. So these people, Gareth Hatton, Johnson Matthey, looked at this, and first of all, the material, the glass itself, is almost pure silicon dioxide. There are no modifiers that bring the temperature down or alter the structure of the glass. So, and no stabilizers such as calcium. And this is a map. If you look here on the right, this has been rotated through 90 degrees, but it's the same backscatter image. So that shows where the red streaks are, and they map to iron, top right, aluminium, bottom left, potassium, a lot of aluminium, and sodium. So these are earth elements, obviously, but since they co-locate, it's reasonable to presume that something was ejected into the glass that contained these elements altogether, probably some form of magma. Now, so the red streaks map to iron, aluminium, potassium, and sodium, and the melting temperature is more than 1600 centigrade. So what is this glass, and also what causes the opalescent streaks? Now, recently I had a bright idea that the iridescence that you see there on that piece, could it be due to iridium? If it was iridium, this would be a hole in one, because iridium on the surface of the Earth, most of the iridium has come from meteorites, because it's such a dense metal. It's the second heaviest metal, slightly lighter than osmium, but it's about, lead is 12, this is 23 or something like that. And the reason you don't find it on the surface of the Earth is it's so dense that when the Earth was molten, it all went to the centre. So there'd be a lot in the centre if we went to look at it. This is a piece, it's not particularly well photographed, but it was a sacrificial piece that I picked up the last time I was in Beijing. And they looked at it. And interestingly, this is an element map. If you look at the top, that's silica, red. So the scale is that at the centerpiece, there's no silica at all. This is the map, the backscatter map, bottom right. And bottom left is titanium. So this is presumably almost pure titanium oxide. Iridium is top right. There is no iridium. So, well, you can't have every experiment working, but it's interesting, and there is a bit of iron in the middle. And there's an element map from the same part. It's relatively impure, showing aluminium top left and iron middle. So there's nothing extraneous there, so we can cross out iridium. It's an earth element, titanium, and other stuff, which we're not surprised about. So I submit that everything points to liquid silica having picked up a variety of minerals from exploding ejecta. And let's now look at evidence. Is Schwaging glass still being mined in Inner Mongolia? Well, the evidence is as follows. My evidence is as follows. First of all, I went to an antique shop in Schillinghott in 2010, and the owner said he could take us. He had some of this stuff, and I'll show you in a moment. He could take us to a Schwaging mine in Tongliao. Tongliao is a big county in Inner Mongolia, or maybe in Liaoning. And what he had was, this was an extraordinary piece, which threw me, because on the face of it, it looks like a quartz crystal, a pink quartz crystal. Oh gosh, what is this object? He was asking $250 for it. Is it a pinky red quartz crystal, in which case we all look a bit embarrassed, or a lump of Schwaging glass carved to look like a quartz crystal, because there is a market for quartz crystals? And the answer is actually quite easy. When you look at the bottom of it, the faces aren't parallel. So if this was a natural quartz, it's got bubbles in it anyway, but this has been carved to look like a quartz crystal, because there's a market for them. Now this piece I found in an antique shop in Beijing in 2010, and the diameter of this was 66 centimeters, 2/3 of a meter across. And you can see it's been really crudely carved. That's a cut at the top. And I said, "Hey Joe, you're going offline." So Joe goes back and he carves down the middle, and this is surely a slice that is being carved from a sphere. It's difficult to explain it in any other way. And the central sort of fan ejection, I mean, I was sorry that I couldn't buy this thing, but it was quite expensive. And you note the incorporated material on the surface, which is reminiscent of what we've seen before, and one piece incorporated into the slice. So then I bought in the same place in 2011. This was run by the apparent owner of the Schwaging glass mine. Was this glass sphere, and you can actually find these they're carved down in Shandong province, and it's obviously the same material. Now there's a market again for sort of glass balls which you put on a stand and you can twaddle. Sort of businessmen in spare moments can do that, an executive toy. I paid $50 for that. Then there's a 16 kilogram glass blob that a friend of mine bought in Hong Kong. I think that's a fairly accurate description of this as a glass blob. It's difficult to call it anything else. Surely the same material. And then that year, I've got friends in Beijing, a dealer who I bought a lot of stuff from, and he actually gave me a useless 12 kilogram remnant of what I can only call as a glass splat. Here it is. I mean, that's the bottom surface of it, presumably. And these are cut marks, and this is absolutely useless. We can't make a glass ball from this. We can't do anything with it. Later, they thought what they could do with these, because a friend of mine, Joseph Muller, who's been with me on a number of these expeditions, was in a place called Jingdezhen, which is porcelain city, which is well to the west of Shanghai. And he found that there were bags of this stuff. These are a couple of pieces he brought back, same stuff. They know it's incredibly hard and they know it's incredibly high melting temperature because, and what they do is they crush it and stick it into porcelain, and they've discovered how to make pink porcelain. Isn't that wonderful? So, glass shards, Joseph on another visit found that these are being shipped in bags which are from a factory. The bags were made for a factory in Tongliao. Those are the Chinese characters. 1,650 kilometers away. Now, is this a coincidence or isn't it? Here's a bag. You can see in the center I've put the characters for Tongliao, and to the left you can see Tongliao. And what this says is this is a bag full of glutamate, waging, and it's the places it comes from, the stuff, is fermented in Tongliao and then it's bagged. Well, there were piles of these bags. So this we thought was a good lead to go back to Tongliao. Anyway, our conclusions, the nature of Shuijing, it's a natural glass. There's no other possible, in my opinion, no other possible explanation that this has come from a meteorite impact, because if it was obsidian, it would be a much lower melting temperature, it would be much less pure. And there are large spheres formed, which must have been ejected in a unique manner, at a low angle, presumably. And the suggestion is they picked up ejecta, including the odd diamond and crud and stuff. If you've got a better explanation, let me know. So, what's the explanation for the tubes? Now, we get on to speculation here, because the tubes are really extraordinary. There is a precedent of fulgurite, which is like what happens when lightning strikes sand. You get, and that's lightning. This is fulgurite. Okay, so it forms tubes, not usually straight tubes, and obviously it's hitting sand, and the sand's, but the temperature is high enough to melt the silicon. Okay. These tubes, you remember, have got holes, which some holes are square, some are round, some are triangular, some are semicircular with a square, and there are lots of, and some are clustered small ones, and most of the big ones have small ones too. So something very, very odd produced these, and I remind you about these you've seen before. Well, if you look at ironstone fulgurite in Australia, this is again something I downloaded from the internet. It's quite interesting that you can even get triangular fulgurite. Now, is it possible, an explanation, my working hypothesis is that after an impact, a massive impact, you get incredible storms. And lightning strikes on a deposit of hot but solid or near solid glass at a critical temperature might produce, the temperatures of lightning strikes are well over 20,000 centigrade, I think, if I remember rightly. Holes, vaporization of silicon dioxide, etc. And then as the glass cooled, the individual tubes separated. Now obviously, if there were deposits of this, and these people had this very high technology, it would have been very important. They would have peeled them away, and then of course they could turn them and finish off the holes in the center. It's a hypothesis. So anyway, my conclusions so far are that there's at least one Shuijing glass mine still active in Inner Mongolia. It's carved elsewhere, the stuff into executive toys. Shards are used as a bulking agent for porcelain in Porcelain City. The origin remains a mystery, but it does seem to be quite like Libyan desert glass. Right, now we move from speculation to extreme speculation. Impact craters and what I call a crackpot theory. So where is the impact side? Now I went to a thing called the Earth Impact Database, which tells you where all the known impacts on terrestrial impacts are on the Earth, and you see that there are I think 22 in the United States, 22 in Canada, there's a lot in Europe,